Well, Gary and Mia, would you tell us a bit about MASA and your professional background? Gary?
Well, MASA is a professional service organization. We're organized as a nonprofit in Minnesota. We have about 600 active members, with our largest active member component group being superintendents of the state of Minnesota. We also have other district-level administrators such as executive directors, directors of special education, assistant superintendents, directors of teaching and learning, directors of technology. And so we really serve the central office level administrator in the state. In addition to those 600 active members, we have about 80 business partners that we feel very, very fortunate to have relationships with various businesses, everything ranging from local businesses within the Twin Cities all the way through state-type businesses, businesses that have regional presence, as well as businesses on the national level. Our last group within our organization, our retiree group, we've got about 260 retirees within the organization. So all told, we're somewhere in the 900 to 1,000 member range as an organization. We have 6 staff. It's amazing the work that we do with 6 full-time employees, and we're truly fortunate to have people that advocate on behalf of the members, truly have as our mission to serve the children of Minnesota and to serve our members. We have a budget of about $1.4 million on an annual basis, and we draw those fees through, of course, our membership fees, as well as through different professional development experiences that we provide and the support of our business partners. In looking at the association, I would frame that we have really 2 areas of focus. One area is that we are advocates at the state and federal level for public education. Part of my role as the executive director of this association is that I serve as a registered lobbyist in the state of Minnesota, and during the legislative session in Minnesota, I'm at the Capitol on a daily basis, interacting with the various members of the House and Senate Education Committees and advocating for the platform on a yearly basis that's created by our membership. The second area that Mia is our leader in is in the area of professional services. We provide resources and services ranging from a statewide perspective. We have 2 statewide conferences on a yearly basis, as well as we have 9 identified regions within the state of Minnesota, and we work within those regions to provide services. And then we do things at the individual member level, everything ranging from support of their professional growth to assisting them with legal matters and things of that nature. In terms of my association with the organization, I'm concluding my 5th year as the executive director of MASA, and prior to that, I had 15 years in the role of superintendent, with the last 10 of those years served as superintendent of the Lakeville Area Public Schools in Minnesota. And I'm just so thrilled to be a part of this organization, and want to give Mia a chance to share some thoughts about her background and her experiences with the organization.
Sure, thanks, Gary. My professional background is very easy to sum up because I have worked here with MASA for 25 years, and I'm not much older than that. So I have had the pleasure of working with this professional community for a very long time. Before that, I did some professional development and community development work for a time, and my classroom experience is that I was a kindergarten teacher, and that's a wonderful, wonderful place to be with those little students. In my role as the professional development person for MASA, I plan and develop certainly our professional development support for our members. They also supervise our staff and work on our strategic plan, and I also support the activities of our sister organizations for special ed leaders, and work with our curriculum and technology leaders also to do some professional development with them.
I think you said, Gary, 6 staff? Is that what you said? 6 full-time?
We have six total staff in the entire MASA organization.
I would say that's called a lean and mean organization. 6 staff to do that much. Whoa.
I would agree with you. Our staff is unbelievably talented and dedicated to serving our membership.
Well, you're a lucky CEO.
Absolutely.
Now, our subject, our main subject today is your Aspiring Superintendents Academy. Tell us a bit about how you got that started. Tell us about its origins and something about how it functions. Gary?
I think that when you look across the country, you will note that we are having a lower number of educators who have an interest in serving as superintendents of school districts, and that is no different than in the state of Minnesota. We are averaging somewhere between 45 and 55 superintendent vacancies a year in Minnesota, and we've got about 330 districts. So we're looking at anywhere between a 15 to almost 20% turnover on a yearly basis. And over the last few years, we have not seen the type of number of candidates applying for these jobs that you may have seen, a decade ago. And so our board actually had a conversation, our MASA board had a conversation about this topic last year, and there was a lot of concern about how are we going to begin to create our own pipeline of quality educators that are going to be able to fill the role of superintendent as we see more and more of our colleagues retiring. And when you look at data that even is produced from our national affiliate, AASA, the American Association of School Administrators, it looks like in the next 5 years, somewhere between 37 and 40% of the acting superintendents are going to retire. And so there's a huge need there. We actually had a conversation with AASA and the National Joint Powers Alliance, that's NJPA. That organization is located in Minnesota. And by working with the AASA and with NJPA, the thought was, would we be able to partner and create a situation that would provide experiences for educators that maybe had as a thought, I might want to be a superintendent someday. And so we talked about this possibility with our board of directors. AASA talked about it with their board, and JPA talked about it with its board, and we were very pleased that AASA and NJPA indicated that they would be substantial sponsors from a financial perspective of this type of an endeavor. So then we began to have conversations about if we were to have this type of an academy for aspiring superintendents, what would it look like? How often would we get together? What would the curriculum be like? All those types of things. And we determined that we would want to do a program that basically ran throughout a calendar year. And so we've established 5 different sessions. Each session is a Thursday and a Friday, so there's quite a time commitment here by people. And we're just terribly excited about what those people are experiencing. And I'm going to ask Mia to talk a little bit about more of the specifics in relationship to the program.
Sure. So if the rationale for offering this content, this experience is to beef up a pipeline of future leaders who are well prepared to be successful in the superintendency, we not only have to look at content areas and the technical aspects of professional practice, we have to look at developing a cohort, developing a network, making sure people are well supported, and really take a good look at what professional practice looks like in the superintendency. And with the hopes that we would ground that material in evidence-based knowledge. You know, we never used to do that back when, in the day, as they say. We used to think that, there were miraculous wonderful superintendents who just had this wonderful pool of talent and that they drew from. But we understand that a lot of this wonderful talent can certainly be taught, and there's a research pool that helps us do that. And so when we look at the knowledge and the skill and the dispositions or attitudes that contribute to successful capstone leadership practice, we want to bring this cohort of individuals into that conversation, not only so they can be well prepared, but also that they can be very reflective, because it's an interesting group. We have 3 folks who have begun superintendencies, and so they will finish their aspiring cohort at the same time as they're beginning their induction program for their practice as a superintendent. And then we have a couple of people who are still not flipping that switch. They're still unsure about whether or not they want to aspire to the practice of the superintendency, and they are so enthusiastic about this experience because it's being really helpful for them in order to make that decision from a really informed place. So when we look at our purpose in developing this pipeline, it's more than a quantity of people who are willing to raise their hands. We're really, really working hard on the quality piece so that people will be successful and stay in the practice once they're in the practice.
Now, Gary, you talked about a serious looming shortage of superintendents as you look ahead to fill vacancies. Why the reluctance now? Do you have any research on why people are hesitant about moving up to the top spot?
I don't know if I've got research data that would be considered sound educational research, but I talk with our superintendents throughout the state. I talk with our component group, who are the assistant superintendents and executive directors. I've got a great relationship with the Elementary Principals Association as well as the Secondary Principals Association in the state, and have a lot of interaction with those educators. And quite frankly, what I hear is that the superintendency, that position, that role, has changed significantly in the eyes of many over the last decade plus. It's becoming a much more politically focused position. It's becoming a position that not only has to do what's best for children, but quite frankly, you have to work with a school board that may not be in alignment with your thinking over time. I've got colleagues that get concerned every time there's a board election, because when new board members come on board, it's almost like starting over again in some ways, because you have to make sure that the new board members are on the same page with the remaining board members, and that the focus continues to be on children. We see a lot of concerns from superintendents when you begin to have the conflict between board or between community or between staff, and it seems like the lightning rod for the conflict within the district somehow always comes back to the superintendent. Within a school district, there is only a superintendent, regardless of what occurs, whether it be at a building level, whether it be an academic issue, whether it be a co-curricular issue. It always seems as though it comes back to the superintendent either doing something that's viewed as being positive or that's viewed as being negative. And I think most superintendents would say that the buck stops with them, but also they then need to feel that they're empowered to work with their colleagues within the district or to work with the board to be able to have an impact, versus not being given that ability to work on behalf of children, but yet being held accountable for the finished product. And I think that political aspect of it being, not just focused on the students anymore, but, we have so many societal issues that have come into our schools. It's to the point where no matter what a superintendent decides, there will be those that are in favor, but there will be those that view it in a very negative fashion. And many people are concerned about the stability of going to a superintendency and are concerned about the fact that if they move or they go to a new place, they bring their family, if things don't work out, do they have to get up and move again? What impact does that have on their family?
So you're talking about a much more political position than might have been the case 30, 40 years ago. Very externally
Absolutely.
focused, which wouldn't be
Absolutely.
everyone's cup of tea. Mia, I think you're up.
So our coaches, we have a wonderful, wonderful group of very experienced superintendents who volunteered their wisdom and expertise in order to support their coaching groups. And the coaching groups are about 5 people. And we have 5 coaches, and we have a facilitator who works with the coaches. And we also have a thought leader, which we didn't really know what to name her, so she got the term thought leader. Her expertise is to be thought-provoking, and she brings in future-oriented work every time we meet, and she piques their interest and brings in things that they perhaps have not yet considered. And so between, among our coaches and between the coaching role and our thought leader and our facilitator, these folks have access to a pretty, there's a lot, it's pretty powerful in terms of the expertise and the enthusiasm and the passion that they have at their disposal. The coaches work with the groups in a variety of ways. They work using conference calling. Minnesota is a really large state, and so we did not put the groups together from a regional perspective. We put the groups together based on a bit of diversity in terms of size of district, in terms of background and current role. So our coaches may be using conference calling. They do a lot of work via email and online. They have a number of tools at their disposal to use technology in order to work with folks. And then another thing that we did that has worked really well is when MASA is planning an event that our members would go to, we figure out a way to give our cohort participants, our aspiring participants, a really significant price break so that they can be there also, and our coaching groups have met that way too. The coaches are one of the big strengths of this program. It's not only their own experience and background and perspective, it's also the way that they support people, because it's so important for these folks to hear that phrase, you can do this. This looks like a lot, and it looks like a big job, and it is a big job, but you can do this. And coaches who've been doing it for a long time and have that wealth of experience are exactly the right voices to carry that message.
Great. So tell me, how did, now, this is your initial cohort, right, that's finishing its work. How did you select the participants? What process did you go through?
We actually worked with our partners, the AASA, our national affiliate, as well as NJPA, to create an application process. And our colleagues at AASA were going to be the fiscal house, so to speak, for the process. And so we put an application process online that was facilitated by AASA. Very simple process in that people were asked to, talk about themselves a little bit, provide us a professional resume, which included their experiences, provide us with references that could speak to their talents and their skill sets, as well as, of course, information on, why do you have an interest in participating in this type of a program. It's important to note that the participants in the program do not receive any type of college or university credit. And so they're doing this as a result of a desire to learn more about this role of superintendent. And so we're very excited that we have people that were willing to do that. You know, we established a timeline for the applications. The applications were all had to be in by a certain date, and then we reviewed those applications. Me and I basically reviewed them. Our colleagues at ASA had looked them over and made decisions on you know, the viability for the individual candidate to be part of the cohort. I'm not sure, Mia, if you'd want to add anything to that from your perspective.
I think one of the things that has been really very gratifying to see is that most of the, well, all of the participants in the cohort have strong support from their current superintendents. Most of the districts are helping to finance this a bit, and they're also giving them time away from the district in order to do this. And that really speaks highly of our sitting superintendents for their support of good professional development. And this is good professional development no matter when you embrace the role of superintendent. If it's next year or 5 years or 10 years from now, this is going to serve you well in any position of leadership.
Now, as you've gone through the sessions, what have you learned during this first the experience of this first cohort? What are some of the things, even if they're just tentative, you've concluded about the program content and how you might want to tweak it going forward?
I need to give Mia all the credit, you know, for the content. She has worked tirelessly with the coaches, with our thought leader, to create the content and to make modifications. And I'm going to ask her to give you more detail about that.
I think that the most glaring example of our learning has been how the group, because of due to their bringing in their own experiences to the cohort and to their coaching groups, we really need to stay flexible in terms of their needs and how we deliver content. We've always been very committed, even when the initial conversations were happening, that the content that we bring in is about through the lens of the superintendent. So I'll give you an example. We'll have some conversation in the fall about finance. We have a business manager in the cohort. She doesn't need to really no one in the cohort needs Finance 101. They understand school finance. They run programs. They are on the front line with their referendums. I mean, they know school finance. But what we want to do is be really, really careful about making sure that the content that we deliver is very much geared toward the lens of the superintendency. So as we do that, we look at how the coaching conversations are going and what the real needs of the people are, and we tailor it and we tweak it as we go along. So even though we have large chunks of content notions, you know, instructional leadership and political skills and working with the media, finance, facilities, career management, all those big chunks, we have gotten to know our cohort members, and we have a better idea of what would really support them. And so even though some of our plans may have looked a little loose, that's been the beauty of it, because it's allowed us to be really, really responsive. I think that the next important thing that we learned through this process is we have to find a really good way of doing that parallel monitoring of the different coaching groups, because we know when we get them together, that something that's going on in one coaching group in between the content sessions would really benefit other groups, and we could be better at that. They're kind of in their own little world in between the sessions. And so next time we do this, we'll build in a mechanism so that for sharing, so that the coaching groups themselves can share their in-between activities. I think those are the two big areas of learning for us.
As you've been moving through the sessions with this group, have you at least tentatively sort of reprioritized any of your programming content? Have you thought to yourself, gee, next go around we want to pay more attention to this or that, or is that premature?
Well, we ask for feedback constantly. They have an online mechanism where they can constantly talk to us and give us feedback, and they can be anonymous if they choose to be. And I have asked them, are we doing this in the right order? Are you getting what you need? Do you feel like we've not hit hard enough on something that goes bump in the night, so to speak, for you particularly? We've been either pretty smart or pretty lucky, probably the second, because the feedback that we're getting is that folks are really happy with the order in which we're doing. The only thing that we've heard remarks that they want all the content really fast. They want everything at the beginning. They don't want to wait till September to do finance. They want everything. They want to magically have all the content right away. Which of course we can't.
That's a tall order, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and they know that too. So,
have you? I'm going to throw a question in, if you're comfortable answering it. Have you, up to now, encountered any participants who might not be temperamentally ready to become superintendents, whom you've talked with because they, for example, Gary, you described a very externally focused job, ever more political, involving a tremendous amount of interaction with the external world, including, of course, often difficult school board members. Have you had occasion to sit down with someone and say, are you sure this is your cup of tea, that you really want to work in this kind of environment? Or has that not come up yet?
I'll just share a thought, and then I'll turn it to Mia. I do think a few of the participants, through the process and through the interactions with their colleagues and being exposed to the various materials and through the conversation, have realized that they may not be at a point where they're feeling that they're ready to be a superintendent yet, and I think that's a good thing, that they're provided with these opportunities for reflection, because it also can help them to gain an understanding of, if they do want to go in this direction down the road, this reflection, this opportunity gives them a chance maybe to see where their areas of strengths are and to identify their areas of growth. And I'm sure we have some people in that boat.
Do your coaches focus on that kind of thing in their groups? Like help people figure out where they need to beef up?
Mia, why don't you share some thoughts on that? You're much more closer to the actual sessions.
Yes, the coaches definitely have had an opportunity to do the hard part of coaching, which is to give feedback that maybe is the toughest kind of feedback to give. But these are experienced superintendents. This is certainly not the first time that they've ever been in that position. So we have had a few instances where that would be the question. Are you really sure you want to do this? What I'm seeing from you is perhaps not a disposition to be X or Y. Yeah, it's responsible coaching. Our coaches are awesome, and so they are well prepared. We also had an opportunity for our coaches, several opportunities for our coaches to get together as a group and talk about some of these things. We've had some professional development for them. A national coaching expert has done some work with them, and every time we meet as a cohort, the coaches meet before the cohort meets and then again after the cohort meets, and so they really support one another in terms of the tough stuff that is bound to come up and does come up. But the other thing that has been interesting is that we have a couple of people who have expressed to the group and to me that maybe their vision for their career in education is not as well suited to the superintendency because they kind of like to be the second in command because they have a little bit more cover and they can feel like they can do more things. And that's how they express it. They have more freedom to do things than they perceive the superintendent having because of the political nature of the superintendency. I have had a couple of really great conversations with folks about the reality of that. I've been a second in command for the bulk of my career, and I will tell you that it's true. I always laugh and say, I wear beige and I stick to the baseboards and I get a lot done. And so there are a couple people in the cohort right now that are thinking that maybe they like being the second in command because of those kinds of things. So it's been a great opportunity for people to really take a hard look at that and make some good decisions.
Yeah, I suppose one of the outcomes is that if a participant didn't already know it, when they've gone very far in the academy, one thing they'll learn for sure is what a big jump it is from the second to the top position. It's almost a change in kind. It's not incremental. It's a whole new world when you become chief executive of a district. And that wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea, for sure. Well, Gary and Mia, thank you so much for taking the time to tell us about the MASA Aspiring Superintendents Academy. Really appreciate it, and I wish you a great afternoon.